Now, the suggestion I planted in the minds of the 41 people was basically something of a green light type effect, although some people were crying because they felt noise and vibrations and so forth, but that's a very subjective phenomena.
41 people.
41 because of the nine college students that ran into the distance and came back to the casino.
That's not hundreds.
I'm talking about thousands.
No, you're talking about.
I haven't finished.
Yes. Okay. So that we might.
I may have finished what happened.
Yeah. There was an object seen and filmed.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't an object seen. What happened at 11:03, as the crews were packing, is that one of the people glanced up and saw what I had suggested as a green light form, but of course I was inside being interviewed further, starting in the same pattern as the others had hallucinated. At 11:04, a second one appeared, and thank God, a gentleman from NBC here in Las Vegas, his camera was still on.
No, I know.
So he called, Steve Krupp, he called and interrupted the news broadcast, and literally thousands of people saw this phenomena take place. As a matter of fact, there are two people who left letters here.
But you know what, Kreskin? It doesn't matter because you intended to deceive from the beginning.
You may say that, but the truth.
I am saying that.
The truth of the matter is that there were thousands for the first. Where have in history, we've all seen films that can be altered, but people saw this for real because some of the crew called home to tell their families and said, we're watching it. And if anyone saw the playbacks this morning on the news, and at noon, it was seen originally live by... Now, in the end, sure, it may. Who knows what it could be? It could be someone throwing plates at someone.
Could be anything. There were people firing flares and all kinds of crap going on last night. Look, my point is that in your own words, in your own press release today, it was intentional deception.
No, it was not intentional deception.
Oh, yeah, when you came on my program and said what you said,
how ruthlessly people are conditioned. Right. If people are conditioned,
it was ruthless.
This could have been done on a larger scale, Art, and that is the fear I needed.
Let me tell you something. Now, let me tell you something. I had a lady from Channel 41 television who was there and grabbed a quick interview with you. And she asked you, because we played it on the air, she held the phone up to the recorder, and she said, some poor lady came down here and from Seattle. Let me finish and spent $600 coming down here. And you said, "Well, I didn't tell her to come down here."
I did not tell her to come down.
Yeah, indeed.
And furthermore, if she stayed, she would have seen the phenomena that she was looking for.
But the deception...
If she stayed, she would have seen the phenomena because it was within the framework of 9:45 to midnight. And it did happen within 9:45 to midnight. Had she stayed, as some of the other people did, and who have sent letters to me and called me, she would have seen right there what some 16 newsmen and crew people saw, and thousands saw on TV.
By your own words...
So I did not tell her to fly in. I did not tell her to fly in.
Kreskin, I know you didn't, but it seems to me...
I would never have suggested anyone do something like that.
Yeah, even if you don't give the $50,000, you ought to give that lady her money back.
Anyway, well, then she should have, perhaps if she flew first class, but the point of the matter is there was a sighting involving thousands of people, and it was live. And as MSNBC and Fox News, in long discussions with me, verified, it did take place in the hour of 9:45 to 12 midnight.
Yes, it did.
And consequently, I was successful in that part of the prediction came about. Well,
you had planned. Okay. Listen.
By the way, I happened to have been the night before performing 50. I don't even want to tell you how close to the Twin Towers. 5 days later, I walked there. Regis was coming back towards me, and it's a setting I can never forget.
Yeah, and what you did, the Twin Towers have no relationship whatsoever, except they're both acts, in my opinion, of terrorism. Take care, Kreskin. I'll tell you something else. I have in all the years that I've done this kind of programming, I have never banned but let's see, 1, 2, 3, or 4 people from my show. So you can still count it on one hand, but add one. Kreskin, you're banned from my show. He hung up. He's banned forevermore from my show. While I do this program, he will never again appear. I know exactly how it came down, and I read his press release today, and in his own press release, he admits that he intended to deceive, as compared to what he said twice on my program. To the entire listening audience, it was, I thought, very clear. Was it not very clear to you? He claims 41 people here. So this, again, is in his own press release, dated today, June 7th, from his office. And it has quotes around his words. Quote, my original intention was to demonstrate a scenario how an enemy possessing the same skill and abilities as myself might create a mass happening on an even larger scale and over a much larger territorial area, end quote. In other words, he knew damn well when he came on my program and said there would be as many as 3 or 4 craft. It would be the sighting of the century, and there would be hundreds of people involved in seeing it. And he went out there and at about 10, 15, or 20 in that area and dropped 2 handkerchiefs. Now, he had done some work with an audience and maintained about 300 of that audience inside during a show. And he'd been doing a little mental work with them. And I guess the dropping of the handkerchief was some sort of key for them to see something. So his original intent, whatever in the hell happened later in the night after everybody left and was packing up, is completely irrelevant. Totally, completely irrelevant. And I draw a line between those guests that I have on the program who claim to be visionaries or mentalists or psychics or whatever word they use, and claim to have had a vision or information come to that's come to them that says something or another will happen. Well, if it doesn't happen, at least they came to me honestly. And I don't feel that was the case with the somewhat, in my opinion, very much less than amazing Kreskin. That was not the case. He did not come to me honestly. And yes, I'm pissed. You bet I'm pissed. And he is banned. Banned from this show forever. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Michael. And I have some information that I think you folks overlooked, which relates both to Saddam, and it ties Saddam directly to John Lear test.
Wait a minute. What does Saddam have to do with the John Lear test?
Well, he has to do everything because Saddam, it's actually a pretty sad day for humanity today, because for all of the bad things that Saddam did, and I understand he did a lot of bad things, nonetheless, he was trying to free this planet from a particular extraterrestrial race.
He was? Saddam was doing that?
Yes.
I think he was trying to free the planet mostly from his own citizens. You know, he slaughtered a lot of them.
Well, perhaps, as I said, if he did it indeed,
so
that's wrong.
You're sad that Saddam is toast.
In some way,
yes?
Because I'm trying to be rational here. I'm not trying to. I know this is going to be a very emotional issue for everybody.
But I mean, you are saying that secretly Saddam was actually interfacing with the aliens, and so
semi-secretly. He was semi-public about it.
I see.
And my information comes from somebody whom you have interviewed a lot and whom you're very familiar with, and that is Richard Hoagland.
Richard Hoagland?
Yes.
But directly? I mean, did you talk to Richard since the capture of Saddam?
Not in person, but I heard one of his presentations at...
Yes, but you could not... All right, well, that's enough of that. There's no way he could have heard a presentation by Richard Hoagland since Saddam's been captured. So therefore, that couldn't have been said. There's just no way. I know for a fact because I talked to Richard, and he will be lucky, and will be lucky, if he gets here tomorrow night. He's got the flu. And so he wouldn't have communicated with Richard. Saddam, the alien negotiator.
My husband and I and my 3-year-old daughter were coming home from visiting family on the farm, and we were on a pretty rural road. It's outside of Chicago, Illinois. It's Harlem and Route 30. Back then it was really rural, not so much anymore. But we were at a stoplight heading north on Harlem, and we were just, we had got the light. We were just waiting to go, and the light turns green. And my husband, steps on the gas, and we're moving forward. And then out of nowhere, just to the left of us, this car is going through the red light. And I'm looking at the car, and I know we're going to be hit. He was that close. I could see his face, through the windshield, and I could see that he didn't have any passengers through our car door where my husband was sitting. You could just see and we were going to be hit.
Yeah, there's that instant of knowing just before.
There was this, he was going to hit us. And I know I turned because my daughter was very precious, and I just turned towards her and I said, "Oh God, please, not her. Don't let her get hurt." And I turned back, and everything got very watery again. It was like I was looking through water, and the car went through us. I could see his interior. I could see him.
I've heard these kinds of stories before that all of a sudden the vehicle just, instead of hitting, passes through, like it wasn't the right time or something for this to happen, and so it doesn't happen. Instead, it passes through, and you say you could see him and his interior as it passed through?
Yes. And the other thing is I felt our front end kind of lift, like from the force of the impending collision.
Yes.
These are things that, 30 years later let you know that, it really did occur because, they were just so unusual. So the next thing I know is I'm looking at his license plate, through the window on the passenger side, and he's still speeding. He didn't hit his brake until after he was, I guess what you'd say, he hit us.
Or should have hit you. In other words, he braked after he passed through you.
Right. He didn't have any reaction to it. He hit it, brakes, and he stopped somewhere down the road, and people came running up to us, other cars, and they're screaming, "We saw you get hit. We saw you got hit." And my husband and I, we were just like totally freaked out. We were just so stunned. And people, they ran up to us, and they're looking, and they realized we're not damaged, we're not hit. They realized something was wrong. We weren't, smeared all over the road.
Which you probably should have been. And so not only did you see this happen, but there were other witnesses who saw what should have happened.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Did any of the witnesses describe the crash that didn't happen, or the meshing of the vehicles in the way you described? Did they see it that way, or how did they see it?
Well, I think I can remember two things very distinctly. One was this one man that came up to us, and he was like literally howling, I saw him hit you, I saw him hit you. And then he just gets this really stunned look, like the realization hit him. And he's just like, how, why? He just was like standing back, and other people are standing back. And I think it was like collectively we kind of realized something very strange happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, people just were looking at us like we were terribly strange. And at the guy down, he was a bit farther down the road, the one who should have hit us or did hit us. And he got out of his car, and he just was looking stunned and got in his car and drove off.
What do you think happened?
It's been 30 years, and I haven't thought of it greatly a lot. In fact, only in the last 2 years I've heard it twice, other stories like mine on yours.
I have had other stories like that, yes.
Right. And I was stunned that, I was just so surprised other people had it. It was like...
Well, what I'm asking you, though, is do you think that some glitch in time happened? Do you think it was something that somehow got twisted out of what was supposed to happen, and therefore it didn't? Or do you see what I'm getting at?
I sometimes feel it's an intervention of some sort. I don't know if you want to say a miracle or just
Well, a person of a religious mindset certainly would say a miracle. I'm sure they would.
But see, I'm not really comfortable with saying just strictly miracle because I'm not that terribly religious. But I do know I've had that watery, seeing watery, looking through water, and other things have occurred. And so I know that this is something that happens to me once in a while. And all I can tell you is that we should have died. We didn't. There were people who saw it. I know my husband and I, we couldn't even drive for a good deal of time. We managed to make it across the intersection because we had stopped literally, in the middle of the intersection. And we pulled over, and I know that we were just both sitting there. He couldn't drive anymore.
No, listen, I understand that. I've had, in my day, a few accidents, and after an accident, you are, for a while, at the very least, you're a very different kind of driver. You've had a shock, and so you drive very differently. But if something like what you just described happened, I could understand you wouldn't drive at all. Thank you very, very much. Close to the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art. This is Charlie over here in Medford, Oregon calling.
Yes,
I was wanting to find out, did you catch on TLC channel tonight the special 1 hour thing they had on Area 51?
No, I heard about it, but I did not see it.
I've got it on videotape. Would you like to have me pop you a copy of it?
Oh, maybe so. Give us a brief...
I was able to catch the first 20 minutes of it before I had to head out the door and go to work, but basically they went on to Area 51 with a camera crew.
I don't believe that.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I caught about the first 20 minutes, so I had to head out the door and go to work.
They may have gone near Area 51.
They were showing pictures inside, yes, and they showed them going down an elevator, way down underground and whatnot.
Really?
And they also showed an aerial photograph taken right overhead, apparently from a satellite shot, and they went zooming right down on top of part of that base.
Oh, yeah.
They brought it right down to beautiful photography.
Oh yes, I've seen photographs. The Russians take them all the time, sir.
But I didn't know if you might be interested in getting a copy of that tape, of that program, just to watch it for whatever it's worth.
Sounds like I would be, yes. Okay,
well, I've got your address, so I will get you a copy in the mail by the end of the week then.
All right, my friend, thank you.
All right, thank you. You have a good night.
Take care. G Underground, now that is in Area 51. In an elevator going down below Area 51. What do you think they've got down there? I have a hard time swallowing that, but, hey, anything's possible, I suppose. However, if I had a camera crew and I could get on Area 51 somehow, if they would take me there, which I doubt, A. B, if they were to take me in and take me down an elevator and show me something or another, would I have confidence that I saw what was really there in its totality? Not a chance. So I doubt it first, but secondly, even if that did occur, and I will check into it, and yes, I'd love to see that, if it really did occur, then I doubt they saw anything other than what the people there wanted them to see.
Absolutely. I spent 9 days with one from the 18th of June of 2003 until 26th of June in New Mexico. And I've been in contact with him ever since.
I'm sorry. Give me your first name again, please.
Roy.
Roy. Okay. Thank you, Roy.
I also knew Kenneth Arnold.
Well, just slow down. You spent from 18 June through 26 June with an alien. How did that come to pass?
Well, it isn't an alien. They're extraterrestrials. We want to change your technology there. They've been here since Earth, before Earth was formed. So they're extraterrestrials. They're not aliens. The aliens are the humans. They were brought here by ships, just like the previous men that was on the ex-military said ships would come in and take those of us, certain ones, away from the planet. That's true. But the human race was brought here from other planets after the Earth was flooded and cleansed.
You sound really sure about this.
Absolutely. I've been involved for 70 years, long before you were born, Art. The whole thing has been a cover-up from the government right on down to your door.
How old are you now, Roy?
How old do I know?
No, how old are you now?
70 years old.
70 years old.
And I got my first implant in 1940. I have 6 implants. And 4 of them are visible. The last one was put in on the 16th of August by the ETs.
And this began how early in your life, Roy?
Pardon?
How early in your life?
1940. I had an implant put in my brain, and I can see any object that they take a picture of with their ship anywhere in the universe in color, and I am totally blind normally. One of the fellows that crashed at Roswell on July the 7th of 1947 was supposed to heal my eyes. He was from the planet Atlanulus, but he got mixed up with the reptoids, so he's no longer doing much healing.
That's quite a story.
It's very true.
I mean, you know, a lot of people, Roy, would be in doubt of a story like this.
Well, I've got the documentation on my website, but I can't give websites. I've been giving worldwide broadcasts, and I've had them on with me. J. Rod is a brother to the one that I've been in contact with, which was very popular in the UFO magazine, the August issue, and I have spoken with him because he is no longer on Earth. He was very badly treated at Area 51 and other bases by the fellow that they don't know where he is. They used boiling liquid, they used hot electric prods on him, and all the technology that you're using right in your studio came right from Massetti since 1947.
Well, all right, Roy, thank you. Listen, I don't know what you say about these things. He sounds so sure of himself, doesn't he? It is reasonable to look at our technological advance as a civilization and look at about that year and then look at the giant leaps we began to take. I don't know what to think of Roy's story. As a 70-year-old man. I mean, it runs the gamut from the very youngest to the middle age to the older people. They all tell very similar, very sure stories. These people don't sound in doubt. It comes rolling off their tongue so easily. Sure, I guess you can sit back and say, well, you know, the world is full of a lot of crazy people. Or not.
I just had a quick question for you.
Sure, fire away.
About your time machine.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I was wondering where I might be able to get a phone number or maybe a web address or something to get more information on maybe buying one or something.
Well, I had a gentleman on the air as a guest who builds these time machines.
I believe I remember that. It was a while ago, I thought.
Try the name Stephen Gibbs.
Stephen Gibbs.
Does that sound familiar to you?
Actually, yes, it does. I don't remember. I was trying to look on your website, trying to look up time machine, anything else, anything I could find on it, but...
Actually, there should be a picture up there somewhere of my time machine.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so, have you tried going... You say you've tried going to the website. What I suggest is there's a search engine within the website itself, and you should be able to enter the words time machine, and it should give you the photograph at the very least.
Ooh, I believe I tried that, and nothing came up, but I didn't try Stephen Gibbs, though. I might want to give that a shot then.
Steve Gibbs or Stephen Gibbs, enter any of that and see what you can get. In the meantime, I will consult with my webmaster.
Oh, okay.
And see if he's got that. I still have my time machine. No, I have not plugged it in. No, I have not yet tried it. One day I may get up the guts to do it, but that day has not yet arrived.
All right, I was just interested. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you and good luck. I'll check with Keith on that. I have the machine. It has this incredibly giant electromagnet that plugs into 110 volts. And I'll tell you how close I've been. I've had it all hooked up, ready to plug the plug in the wall. There's always something that stops me, and maybe it's common sense. How would you reasonably do that? Have you thought about it?
Well, I think it's going in a good direction so far. In other words, real resistance in the streets, for one thing. And so I advocate property damage as instead of just symbolic, polite, hold up your sign, do what the cops tell you. It's going to take more than that to undo this whole ghastly cancer of technology and capital that's destroying the whole planet.
You advocate property damage.
But that's different from violence to
people.
personal violence, right, or other forms of life. It's very different.
Yeah, but a lot of times what's intended to be property damage, you know, when people go out and blow up abortion clinics or whatever their cause is, they end up killing people. You would consider those to be what? Innocent victims, collateral damage?
That's going to be a problem if and when it happens. But if you're, I mean,
it's already
nothing
happened.
to do with blowing up abortion clinics. So.
I understand, John, but I'm just saying that property damage is property damage, and sometimes attendant with property damage is human damage.
It's possible. It's possible. I think it's been avoided so far. For example, the Earth Liberation Front, they've burned down a lot of buildings and so on, but no one has been injured, much less killed, in all of these various arsons and so on. So they, you know, but it's not just an academic question. It's a real question of what if people get hurt. I mean, if a cop attacks you and you defend yourself and the cop gets hurt, well, what about that? I mean, these are the questions that come up.
And you're right there. In other words, since you advocate this, you are going to perhaps even have to deal with such a question, aren't you?
Well, I am not just an academic, or I would have been a full professor many years ago. I mean, I feel like I am a part of this movement, and
fairly said, you could have been a professor. Obviously, you have chosen a different path.
I'm very glad. I've never regretted that I haven't gone that way.
What kind of property damage is justified in your mind?
Well, you know, let's take Seattle. I know more about that than, say, Genoa, but, you know, the progression goes to the place of, the biggest one was last July in Genoa, 300,000 people in the streets and $50 million worth of damage done to banks and other corporations like that. I think in Seattle there was...
The Wild Thing at 775-727-1295.
Messed up whatever country we were talking about, but I mean, I think there's an awareness of which outfits bear a greater responsibility for the ongoing destruction.
So, in other words, it's justified to target outfits that particularly egregiously affect the environment, for example. Would that be fair?
That's part of it. And I think there's also another dimension. By the way, there's a fantastic video about Seattle called "Breaking the Spell." A local videographer here, Tim Lewis, made this, and he's marvelous. But anyway, the title of that, it refers to breaking windows, but the real meaning, and it comes out in the video, in the film, is that you break the spell of conditioning. We're all caged animals. We're all suppressed and repressed, and there's a realization that you can move against oppression. You can do something about domination. And there were people up there who said, for example, I thought we'd never see white people really fighting. And, you know, that went on for almost a week up there. And it wasn't just, it spread. And that's the kind of thing that's going to have to happen.
Well, all right. When you destroy, let's say, a corporate building that you think is egregiously affecting the environment in some way, do you think that the publicity from that and the thinking of the people that read that publicity aids your cause or harms it?
Well, probably both. To me, the uppermost thing is the real inspirational thing. And in Europe, I found that. I mean, they couldn't get enough of Seattle. And I was thinking, well, gee, it's already kind of ancient history. But I think it's a turn-on for people who are tired of just going along under the heel of this whole system.
What did you think was so trick about Europe? What was so cool about Europe? What did you like?
You know, I think the most basic thing that I got was that people know that something different is needed, that the old answers, including the old radical movements, the left-wing stuff, doesn't do it. That's discredited. That's a dead end.
Where did you go in Europe?
Well, mainly Spain, but also London.
London?
I'm going to Greece and Italy next month, actually.
Are you really? I'll tell you a common theme that you'll find in most places, perhaps not in parts of Greece, but generally in Europe. The cities are clean. You don't find the graffiti all over their transportation systems, such as they are. They have a great deal of mass transport compared to us. They're very interesting, clean environments. Did you notice?
Well, yeah, there are certainly some urban differences, and
big time.
And it varies by neighborhoods too. I mean,
yes, it does. But I mean, generally, they're much cleaner and prettier, and they just.
Oh, sure. There's a great deal of charm.
See,
it's not such standardized, faceless architecture as this country.
That's right.
All the cities are pretty ugly in this country.
I might agree with that. Dirtier anyway, although we're making some strides. Most particularly in New York. New York City has really made some big strides. But generally in Europe, I mean, that's right. But you know how they get that?
Well, I know how they got it in New York by a rather fascist crackdown, including shooting people. I mean, that's one way to clean up the city. I mean,
they cleaned it up.
Mussolini did that too. If you want to go too much in that direction.
But no. I'm headed in. Let's stick with Europe and the differences there for a second. It's mainly socialist, and the tax rates there are unblinking believable. I mean, they're just unbelievable. They're unbearable. Yeah, the streets are clean. And the buildings are clean, but the people are subjected to the kind of tyranny that would would make America look like truly the land of the free. I mean, the tax rates there are unbelievable. Mm-hmm. That's tyranny, right?
Well, I'm not a socialist. I don't think more government is the answer. That's certainly not an anarchist.
But you loved Europe, and they've got more government, believe me, than we do.
Well, I loved a lot of things about it, but I mainly love the struggle against the whole system, no matter where you are.
But they are the system. If you were in London, for example, I mean, the British, oh my God, they're structured. They don't have near the freedoms that we do in so many different ways. They are far more restricted than we are, and their taxes are much higher. If you were living there and working there, you would be an angrier young man than you are at what we have.
Well, I guess it's what you're used to, and that's part of it as well. I don't know if I would or wouldn't be. I think I see elements. I think you can see the elements of opposition in various places, certainly, and not just in Europe. But I think there's a rising tide of resistance the way things are going.
There certainly is to globalization. There's plenty of resistance in Europe, as there was in Seattle. Mm-hmm. But
and of course in the third world, where indigenous cultures have tried to stave off the empire for hundreds of years, not just something this first world protest movement, and it's not true. For example, well, sorry if I'm jumping around here, but that not everybody wants to become a consumer on the model of North America or something. I mean, there are people who realize what a bad bargain it is to give away your authentic culture for what?
Well, John, there
Walmart in your neighborhood or something, and
John, you're right about that. There are some, but they are the distinct minority. Hold on, we're at the bottom of the hour.
I've been tracking the Jersey Devil in the Pine Barrens with a team, with a group of hunters, and even had a lead on a direct descendant of the Jersey Devil.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you organize and then decide where you're going to go to hunt these creatures? I mean, do you operate on tips? What do you do?
Well, in this case, I mean, in this day and age, of course, the Internet has made things much more accessible, and we tried to find, in the case of Monster Hunters, which was a series I created, and I'm a filmmaker, so I go out there, and my wife and I, we both go out there and produce these shows and direct them, and I'm often shooting myself. So I get firsthand experience, and I want to find people that are, credible, hunters. They're not just, fanatically interested in something, but they actually, have a basis for their hunts, and so that we can go out and see what they are up to. And in the case of the Jersey Devil, I mean, it's a fascinating phenomenon, because here's a bona fide American legend. Not that much is known about it by the general public. It has a fantasy, if you will, supernatural component. That is, it's born of the 13th child of Mother Leeds. The 13th child, Mother Leeds, late one stormy night, is going to give birth. She's had 12 children. She doesn't want the 13th one. She said, let this one be a devil. And out pops the baby. The baby transforms into a demon. In some stories, kills the parents and bites their neck, and then crashes through the glass and out into the Pine Barrens to haunt it forever. That's the legend.
No kidding. Now, I've got some books. I have never read that. Mm-hmm. I've always read about contemporary sightings or whatever of the Jersey Devil, but I had no idea how it was, the myth behind it was.
It's a wonderful legend, because the Jersey Devil pops up at time when America is under stress, when America is about to go to war. It's a portent of war. It appeared just before Pearl Harbor. It appeared during the American Revolution. It was, it was shot at by Admiral Decatur, with a Commodore Decatur with a cannon shot through its wing. Apparently, American Revolutionary hero. There was, Napoleon Bonaparte's brother lived in New Jersey for a while, and he sighted it in a hunting party. There were, there've been many sightings. In 1911, that's when thousands of people across 3 states claimed they saw it, and there were armed shotgun riders riding on the trolley cars in Pennsylvania. And
wow!
And it was even at one point a fire department had the Jersey Devil trapped on the roof of a house and was using a fire hose to try and get it down. And they ran, this is 1911, so they ran out of water. It jumps down. They're throwing sticks and rocks at it. And 2 policemen that same year said they shot at the Jersey Devil. What is it that, we're in the 20th century now. We're not back in Salem witch trial era. What did these so-called, modern 20th century humans, what did they see? What were they fighting?
I'm going to ask you to describe the Jersey Devil. I've heard Bigfoot, of course, described many times. Chupacabra is described many times, but I've never heard a description of the Jersey Devil.
Well, this is where it, potentially crosses over into, your kind of devil Christian iconography. I mean, he's described as having, this horse-like head and then bat wings, a cloven hooves, a forked tail. But the head is always, less devil-like, I would say, than even like a camel or a devil or a horse-like head. And we talked. What's fascinating is we went into the backwoods. There's people there called the Pineys, who are descendants of Hessian mercenaries from the American Revolutionary Wars that still live in the Pine Barrens.
Wow.
And we were actually fortunate. They invited us to like a guitar jamboree that they had there. I mean, this is 2 hours south of New York City, right? or less. And the Jersey Devil is theirs. It's their story. It's their creature, if you will. They talk about, these modern people talk about going out in the woods and cutting timber, and hearing a wailing, screaming sound that is louder than their power saws, their chainsaws. And they talk about being woken in the middle of the night repeatedly over the course of a year with screams coming from a swamp that sounded like a woman being torn apart, is how they described it.
Yes.
So, what is this? I mean, no one's getting famous over this. They're not, again, there's people not, they're not making money. I don't think the Inquirer's been there lately. So why are they describing these things? What did they hear? And there is something biological going on in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Maybe it's a big crane, maybe, it's been speculated by some people that there's a crack in the earth there and some kind of pterodactyl has gotten on the loose.
Hello. Who am I looking for?
It must be Nunchi.
I'm looking for a blonde no, just kidding. Who are you looking for?
Who am I looking for?
Yeah.
Nobody.
But nevertheless, you did call my special time traveler line, so you are a time traveler, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So, what shall we call you?
I don't think you could call me a time traveler, because I don't know how to time travel. I don't have a machine, you know.
But you have. No, I meant as in a name. Let's begin simply here.
I traveled into the future.
What? Well, that's good. But what is your name?
Nunchi. It means the little people in Cherokee.
Nunchi, really?
Yes.
That's an elegant name. All right, Nunchi. You traveled into the future.
Yes, in 1988.
How did it happen?
I went to bed. I went to sleep. I woke up early morning hours. Everybody asleep. And my bedroom door was open. And I knew I must walk. I must get out of bed and walk down the hall. And when I went down the hall to the entry hall, the front door was open. And I knew I was going to go meet ghosts, people who had died. I understood, in my understanding, I thought of them as ghosts. I thought it was going to be extremely boring. I'm not happy about this.
Meeting dead people? Yeah, I mean, why did you, first of all, why, even with what happened, would you have a knowing that this was what was going to occur?
Because the Great Spirit, his name is Jesus, he told me.
Jesus.
Somehow he spoke to my innermost being, to my heart, and I knew.
Jesus told you were about to meet dead people.
Yes, but I didn't quite understand him. So I was in my ability to understand him. I thought, it's going to be ghost driven. They're going to be see-through. There's going to be mist around them. When they speak, it's going to echo. You know, it's going to be very boring.
The standard, most to your surprise.
I knew that my path was to walk out into the front yard. I got to the end of the driveway. We have chain link fence. I live in Sacramento, California.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my hand on the chain link fence post.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw lines of people. And these were all the people who had ever lived. Yes, everybody who has ever lived.
Did they seem happy?
They did not seem happy or sad. Either way.
No.
And at the time, I hadn't yet been enlightened. At the end, I would start to understand. I thought they were just ghosts. So my attitude was very rude and disrespectful because I thought it was all very boring. I didn't realize what was taking place was real, and it was in the future. And when you die...
Are you suggesting then that in the future you saw, everyone was dead? That's what you're telling me?
No, I don't know. At the time of my death. This was at the time of my death.
Your death?
Yes.
Okay.
And I met people, and when you die, you go through these receiving lines, and you must take both your hands. They reach out to you with both their hands. You grasp hands with them.
And somehow you would think when you die, lines would be one thing that you'd be able to avoid, but no, huh?
No. But it's interesting because something was taking place that I was understanding in my innermost being, that in my conscious mind I didn't quite know, but every time I grasped hands with each person, I knew all about them. I knew if they were good or if they were evil.
Well, what difference does it make? They're dead. They were dead, right?
No.
You just
not. I thought they were dead. They were not dead.
They weren't dead.
It is me.
It was you that...
I found out who the ghost was. I found out the person who had the death in them was me.
Oh, brother. Okay, so this was your death experience, huh?
No, I mean, I know that when I die, I know it is going to be on the street. I know the name of the street. And I know that when I die, I will go to that receiving line, and I will not be afraid.
All right,
because
well, you know...
it was very real.
All right, yes, I've got that. All right, well, I guess in a sense that might qualify as time travel, but that's awfully loose. Now, what am I talking about when I'm talking about time travel? I'm talking about real time travel, which I suppose is laughable unto itself in a way, isn't it? Because we don't really know that time travel is real. I just strongly suspect that it is, very strongly, and we will encounter one. Her experience was interesting, though, wasn't it? What a surprise. You're going to meet dead people. Well, she must not have heard correctly, because it turns out she was the one that was dead. And that was her death, and she's going to go to a line when she dies. I can't even imagine that. Lines are bad enough in life, but now we're going to have to face them in death as well. I mean, somehow you feature this misty, never-ending line of people who've just died, waiting for their processing or whatever.